Hello, everyone, and welcome to Burn the Ship, the podcast that helps entrepreneurs go all in on their business, and we introduce them to professionals that can help them to do so. Today, we have a very special guest. Arlen, how are you doing today?
Great. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Go ahead and introduce yourself and the name of your business.
Sure. My name is Arlen Olsen. I'm a patent attorney, and my business is Schmeiser, Olsen Watts.
Awesome.
We're located in 5 locations throughout the United States. We're in the East Coast. We're in Boston, New York, and we're also in Arizona, California, and Washington, D.C. And soon we're to open an office in North Carolina.
Awesome, awesome. How long have you guys been in business now?
We've been in business since 1983.
1983. Awesome, awesome. Well, talking about time, we understand that time is one of our most valuable resources. So, Arlen, go ahead and tell the people about your journey.
Sure. So I started out in college as an engineer. I was going to school as a mechanical engineer and getting my master's degree, actually. I was a pre-med at the time. And so I'm studying all this chemistry, organic chemistry, anatomy, as well as all this engineering. And I was actually trying to get into medical school, and I applied to medical school, took the MCAT, and I took this course on the future of medicine, and everybody was just so negative. I said, well, hey, I'm going to shift careers. I'm going to go somewhere else. And so I went into the career placement office, and I saw this poster up, and it said, become a patent examiner. So I filled out the card, sent it in. They sent me an application. I filled that out. They called me up and offered me a job. And I thought, wow, patent examiner, Washington, D.C. I didn't think I was, at the time I was living in Utah, I didn't think I'd go back to the East Coast. And so I sat there and thought on it. I don't know if I want this. And I really thought hard about it. I finally said, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go for it. And they also offered me to go to law school. They were going to pay for my law school. So I said, yeah, I'll take the job, hung up the phone, and the phone rang again. I picked it up, and it was for another job as a nuclear engineer, paying $12,000 more. I would have had a hard time making the decision, but I said, I'm sorry, I already took a job. I appreciate the offer. So I went back to the patent office to Washington, D.C., where I worked for 5 years. I applied to law school, got into George Mason University in Virginia, and went there for 4 years in night school. Went to night school, worked at the patent office, and while I was in the patent office, I used to love to talk to attorneys because I thought, you know, if I'm going to be a patent attorney someday, I have the best, most fertile ground to learn from the top patent attorneys in the country. So when they would send me patent applications, I would just start asking them question after question to just pick their brains and learn from them. And that's really how I learned the profession, is I had all these top attorneys, like I had AT&T, ExxonMobil, just top-notch attorneys, IBM, and I would just start asking them questions about, well, hey, if you were to do this, what would you do? How would you do this? And they gave me a lot of great feedback. Well, along that journey, as a patent examiner, they used to keep the patents in these things called shoes. And a shoe is, it's a drawer. The legend is that Thomas Jefferson kept his first patents in a shoebox and right behind his desk, and he'd pull them out and look at them. Mm-hmm. Well, now we have tens of thousands of these little drawers that we call shoes, mm-hmm. where you'd pull out the patents and you go searching through them. Today, everything is electronic, but back then it was a shoebox. So this guy walks in my office, and they would ask you for a search. They'd say, well, what area do you go to look for this technology? So he comes into my office, and I said, you know, I told him where to go, and I said, go down to this area and look in this area. Well, right before that, his inventor had called. He says, you know, I'm having a hard time with this attorney. Can you tell me, can you help me out getting my patent? I says, well, I can't help you when you have an attorney in place. So you'll have to either fire your attorney or we'll have to work with your attorney. And so this attorney that just walked in the office just happened to be his attorney. just total coincidence.
Right.
And so I looked at it and I didn't say anything to him. He goes down to to look for the patents. And I just happened to go down there a couple hours later and I was looking and he was still there. So I get talking to him and I thought, hey, this is a great guy. And while I'm talking to him, I said, hey, you know what? Your inventor just called me a couple hours right before he came in and he wasn't very happy. He was trying to get his patent through. And I said, why don't you come back to my office? So we went back to my office and we sat down and we talked for a while. Then I called his inventor back up and I says, hey, I've got your attorney right here. How would you like to work with your attorney and me and we can work on getting a patent? So we worked with him, ended up getting a patent for him. His patent was on the base of buildings or when you're doing construction on homes, they have these boards that they'll put up and they'll put concrete between the two of them. Well, he made these boards hollow out of plastic with holes in it so that it would be a drain, so that you would just pour the concrete and leave the drain in.
Right.
And I ended up helping get his patent. His attorney was right there. And he ended up making millions off of that invention, from what I understand later on. He was able to get a company and do extremely well with that. So after that, I became good friends with this guy. He kept inviting me to lunch, and I said, no, I can't go to lunch, or I can't have you pay for lunch. I'll go to lunch with you, but I can't have you pay for it because I'm a government official and you can't pay for my lunch. So we'd go to lunch, we talked for a while, talked for about 2 or 3 years, and eventually he offered me a job. I went up to New York and I was there for a year. He left to Arizona and I stayed, and I had a law firm after 1 year out of law school and after just finishing up in the patent office. So I sat out there for 28 years and grew this business. Great, amazing stories of inventors, and a lot of things happened when a lot of interesting stories. Well, I'd say,
yeah, I'm sure we're going to dive into a couple. I mean, that is an awesome way to share your journey. As you're talking about it, it seems like things were coming along pretty good at the patent office. You knew your stuff, you knew what was going on, and this attorney was after you for years. Was it a specific event that happened that made you say, you know what? I am going to burn the ship of what I'm currently doing and go all into this practice? Did something specific happen to make you make that choice?
So this law firm had about 3 attorneys in it. It was a very small law firm. And I was looking at other law firms like in Washington, D.C. with hundreds of patent attorneys in it. I interviewed out in California, and I looked at this and I said, if I can go to this small law firm, I can make a difference. I can actually create my own journey instead of being in this big machine of this cog, of being at the bottom of this hierarchy where I had to work my way up. I said, if I'm going to do it in life, I'm going to have to do it myself. So I decided to try this small firm so that I could make a difference. And when my partner, Al Schmeiser, left and went to Arizona, that gave me this opportunity to kind of build my own ship, to set my own course. And after he left, I pulled in a large Fortune 5 company, and we just started getting in lots of patents and started working on it. Our quality improved amazingly, because if you're with a large corporation, you have to do very high quality work.
Yeah. Is it one of those things where, I know you're talking about corporate work right now, because I want you to tell us, about the business, and who are those ideal people you're looking to get in contact with. I know you do work with corporate. How far does it trickle down to? Do you go all the way to the individual inventor? Tell us all about that.
Yeah, so we work with all types of inventors. We work with the small inventor. We work with the large corporation. We work with venture capitalists. We work with foreign law firms that send us work coming in from foreign countries. And The funnest ones are a lot of times the small inventor. They take a lot of hand-holding, but they're actually very interesting. And some of the most successful ones have been the small inventor. We had one inventor that came into us and he said, hey, I got this great idea. What I do is I take a balloon and I fill it with seeds and baby powder and fill it up, make a little ball. And then I cut the end off and then I put another one around it, cut the end off, and I glue them together. And then I make this strength ball where you can kind of improve your strength. And he was about 23 years old at the time. And I think, okay, yeah, this is another small inventor coming in. So about 5 years later, he had a factory with 80 people in it. And they were cranking night and day, 24 hours a day. And he was probably making $5 million a year with these balloons that he was making. He was the #1 sales on QVC at that time. And QVC channel is a marketing channel on TV.
Yes.
And so it just goes to show you that you never know what's going to happen. He's gone on and become extremely successful in his life. But yeah, you see these small inventors come in the door and they have these, you have no idea where they're going to go with these ideas sometimes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you said 1983?
1983 is when the firm started, and I started in 1993.
1993. I'm sure there are so many things that you have come across as far as with the smaller inventors all the way up to ingenuity just continues to flow, and I'm sure you get a chance to see it all the time.
We do. With the large corporations, I had an inventor. You get these disclosures from these large corporations, and I got a disclosure on a thing called chemical vapor deposition, where they're making semiconductor chips. And in making the semiconductor chips, they came up with a new way of making the chip using chemical vapor deposition on the chip. And so I looked at it, and it was a chemical technique. And I said, so, okay, I'm looking at this thing here, and you're making these tiny transistors on these chips. And I said, okay, and you're doing these things, and with this technique, you can make them 200 angstroms thick. And I said, well, how big's an angstrom? And they said, well, a tungsten molecule is 20 angstroms thick. So we're about 10 times the size of a molecule. We're making a transistor. And I said, has anybody ever done it that small? And he said, no. And I said, well, why don't we get a patent claim on a field effect transistor, a transistor that's smaller than 200 angstroms? And we got that, and that was the #1 patent of the year for that group.
Look at there. That's
It was
awesome.
amazing.
Yeah.
But not only do you work as a patent attorney just helping people get patents, but you have to think outside of the box too and ask them the right questions to get to what they're actually doing. Or you have to actually be inventive or an entrepreneur yourself in trying to just dig out what they're doing that really can make a difference in the world.
Yeah, it seems as if, again, you've come across so many different stories. You know, with the corporate, they're going to have those attorneys. They're going to know the process. But so you can paint a clearer picture on the canvas, let's just say we're speaking to those smaller inventors. Can you talk a little bit about the process in itself? I know all of it's going to vary as far as time-wise, but let's just say Roderick comes in the door with an idea. What's the process with Arlen from that point?
Okay, so the first thing that you do is you say, well, is what you're doing patentable subject matter, or can you even get a patent on this thing? And the first thing you do is do a patent search. What you'll do is you'll write down what they're doing and they need to bring in any document that would help you in understanding the invention. It could be a drawing, videos, a write-up, or sometimes they just sit down and describe to you what they're doing and you write it down. After they give you a disclosure, then you ask them a series of questions to make sure that it's actually patentable. You know, how long have you sold this thing before? If they sold it for more than a year, they're barred from getting a patent. Or if they've been going to trade shows. So you have to get in your patent attorney relatively quickly if you want to get a patent. You can't be out there showing it to everybody. You have to get into them. So the next thing we do is we do a patent search. We look out and see if there's anything out there that's like it. And essentially what a patent is, it's a difference that makes a difference. So it's a very, you can actually have many different types of inventions within a patent. So you could claim it different ways, but it would be just what you've done that's different that no one has ever done before. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people will think, well, that's not patentable. That's been done a long time. So if you think about it, think about ancient Greece, and there was a printing press, and they would use or not a printing press, but a press that they would use to press grapes with. And they would crank those down and press them. And then in ancient China, they had printing blocks that they would, 2,000 years ago, they'd have these blocks they dip in ink and then they put on paper. Well, nobody had put those two together before, even though it's been thousands of years. And then in 1500, Gutenberg in Germany put the printing blocks onto a wine press and came up with the printing press, one of the greatest inventions in the world. Mm-hmm. But the two parts of it had been done for thousands and thousands of years. So what we're looking for is, okay, nobody has ever put these two together like this in a new way. And that's the patentable part of what we're looking for. So we'll do a search. After we do the search, then we come back, the inventor comes back and we say, okay, what you've done is patentable. The next step is to file a patent application. So sometimes inventors think, well, okay, you just fill out an application and send to the patent office. No, a patent application is a very specific legal document that's defining those differences. And it takes a very good patent attorney to put those together. We fill out the patent application, and it takes about a month or two. We send that into the patent office, and then we wait for about a year to 2 years. And then the patent office will send us a response back. Sometimes they'll say, okay, the patent is allowable. Or sometimes they'll say, no, you have to do some more work on it because these claims read on this prior art. Mm-hmm. So if the difference has been done before, we need to tweak that difference so that it's something that has never been done before. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you'll have to do a lot of back and forth with the patent office, and those are called office actions. Sometimes you can't come to a resolution with the examiner, and then you'll need to appeal that to the Board of Patent Appeals. That happens sometimes. And finally, when a resolution comes, you get a notice of allowance and you pay an issue fee. The patent issues, and then after that, you have to pay maintenance fees at 3.5, 7.5, and 11.5 years.
Okay. When I received the results back from the patent office that first time, you said it could be 1-2 years. Is it the same in the response? Another year or so goes by before I hear back again, or is it a little bit faster from there?
It's a little bit faster. The patent office has to respond within, they have certain production guidelines that they have to respond with. But as an attorney, we have 3 months to respond to that office action, or we start paying fees. Okay. And so we can get up to a total of 6 months to respond. And then the patent office usually gets back to you within, say, 3 to 6 months. So there's back and forth going on there. Yeah.
So it sounds like if you have one all tight and right, everything is defined, you can get it done in a couple years. What is the longest one that you have dealt with that ended up being successful? How many years did it take to make the tweaks and get it coined?
I've had patents that have gone for 20 years.
20 years. So they can't show.
But along the way, we've been getting patents issued off of that. They call continuations.
Okay.
So this one was on some of the original voicemail technology.
Okay. Now you were saying that they can't get out and show it, so I can't show it while my patent is pending, or do I have to hold it a secret?
Okay, so before your patent is filed as a patent application, I would keep it secret.
Okay. After
it's filed as a patent application, you have a marker in the sand that, hey, this is the date that it's actually being applied for. Depending on your strategy and your industry, That's the date you usually can go out and start selling it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people want to wait a little bit longer to get an edge on the competition, but I would wait at least till your patent application is filed.
Okay. Definitely appreciate you sharing that. It is definitely great information for me. I didn't know that, and I'm sure some of the entrepreneurs that are watching today can help them because they may be in a specific industry, like your gentleman was saying with the houses, in that industry and found a better way, and they just don't know what to do with it. So I definitely appreciate you sharing that. Now, we talked about your practice and what you guys do. Another segment that we always like to talk about are referral partners. You know, I know your clients send you opportunities, but is there a specific industry in which you find is good for you to have a referral partner inside of it, or is it just inventors?
No, there's probably the one that we're most closely aligned with are venture capitalists, because venture capitalists are dealing a lot with inventors
Mm-hmm.
and new startup companies. New startups don't know where to go. If you watch the show Shark Tank, a lot of the sharks will ask the entrepreneurs, hey, do you have a patent on that? And the reason they ask that is because they don't want to invest a lot of money into it and then have somebody else take the idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'd say venture capitalists are good resources. We work a lot with foreign patent attorneys, and then just in-house patent counsel is great referral sources for us.
Okay, thank you so much.
And then actually, probably one of the better ones are other law firms that don't specialize in patents.
Mm-hmm.
We work with a lot of law firms. Some just deal with corporate clients. Some deal with investing and funding, and they just don't have resources to do the intellectual property. Because to develop a really good intellectual property firm, you need someone with technologies in all different areas.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got people with PhDs in physics, chemistry, we've got material scientists, we have civil engineers, mechanical engineers, people with pharmacy degrees, biotech degrees, because you could be dealing with an anti-cancer drug, but the person may only have a background in electrical engineering. You know, and how are you going to write an anti-cancer drug patent if you've never had any experience in that?
Yeah.
So we actually have coverage in all those different technologies.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I have networked with a few attorneys, and you have made it consistent. Each attorney has said other attorneys are great referral partners for them because you guys specialize in what you do. Like for yourself, yes, you're an attorney and I am sure you're capable, but you don't want to deal with a bankruptcy. You know, you want to focus on, you know, your patents. So if I receive a referral, although I'm a bankruptcy attorney, they need a patent, I'll just send them over to Arlen. So attorneys that are watching, please keep that in mind if you come across those opportunities for patents. So
interesting thing is patent attorneys there's only two attorneys that can call themselves a specialist. And one is a patent attorney. And the reason a patent attorney could say we're a specialist is because we have to take a special exam to practice before the patent office. So not every attorney can practice before the patent office. You have to have an engineering or science degree, and then you have to pass the exam.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense why attorneys are good, because they haven't passed that test or taken the test to even know about it. So thank you so much for sharing about the referral partners. Now, you have been in business for a while. I'm sure you have owned other businesses, and throughout those times, I'm confident that you have acquired and nurtured some business skills or some best practices that you have added to your mix that have helped you to be successful. Do you mind sharing with the entrepreneurs that are watching today a couple of those best practices that they can possibly add to their mix and help them to be successful?
Sure, I'd love to.
Yeah.
So as a patent attorney, there's this book called How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci. And the bottom line of it is, in order to be at a genius level, you just need to be a really curious person. And a lot of people have a hard time being an entrepreneur because they're afraid, they're scared to try something now. But if you can convert your mindset from being afraid to being very, very curious, like your curiosity overwhelms your fears, you'll start moving into different realms of, of development, of entrepreneurship, and you'll start leaving behind these fears and just getting really curious. And if you were to analyze Elon Musk, he's probably just an extremely curious guy who just has all these things burning in his brain about curiosity. So I became really curious about what it's like to be an entrepreneur, what it's like to start my own company. And over time, I've started many, many companies. In fact, I'm on the verge of starting a company that is really launching extremely well and taking off. And it's based on about 30 or 40 patent filings that I've done on this technology. But the roadmap for success on that is, first of all, you got to ask yourself, what kind of market am I going toward? You know, what kind of sales? I've had inventors come in that have a very specific cure for a very specific disease. And I say, well, how many people actually would benefit from that? And they said, well, there's probably, it's such a rare disease, maybe 10 people. Well, that's not a very good market. You have to really look at how big your market is, your target customer, how big is the total industry that you're looking at. Are you talking $1 billion industry? A lot of times venture capitalists will look at the size, the total accessible market, the TAM, total accessible market, and then say, well, how much of that can you actually access? And so in order to be successful, you have to look at your market. That's the number one thing. Then you have to put together a plan. So what is my roadmap of how I'm going to become successful? You can't just do this in the dark. So you got to have a roadmap. Once you get that in place, then the next step is, okay, who's going to make my product? Am I going to make this myself, or am I going to have this made offshore? Now, right now, there's a lot of issues with inventors because of the tariffs in place. You know, where are you going to get this made? If you want to sell to the government, you can't have it made in certain countries. You have to have a TAA compliant country. So you need to look at where you're going to get it made. Do I want to make it in the US, Mexico? Well, if you make it in the US, you're looking at probably about a 6 times cost increase over making it overseas. So you have to look at where you're making it. So then next thing is, and you get your patent protected. That's one of the steps along the way. But the most difficult part of the whole process is marketing. Is now you've got a product in place. How are you going to get this out into the consumer's hands and get paid for it? And that's where a lot of inventors fail, entrepreneurs fail, is they don't really have a go-to-market strategy. How are you going to get this thing out there? Every industry is different. You know, selling to the automotive industry, you're probably going to have to go through somebody that sells to the automotive industry. Or if you're in the medical industry, you're selling a medical device, you need to go get a GPO contract, general purchasing, group purchasing organization contract, or else you're going to get locked out. You can't just walk into a hospital and sell something to them. So you really need to develop an online presence. You need to work with individuals that are specialists in marketing to certain industries. And you really, as an entrepreneur, you're really jack of all trades. You have to know a little bit about accounting. You have to know a little bit about law. You have to know about technology. You have to know about marketing. You really need to be a curious person to want to know all of these different things. And you need to love to learn. You need to dig in and not be afraid and just go for it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. That is awesome tidbits of knowledge, because, you know, a lot of times business owners, their cup gets full and it's a situation where not much more can go in it. And what you're sharing, being around people who have been successful, you're successful yourself, is that you have to continue to be open to learn. And I definitely think that's a nice thing for these entrepreneurs to hear. So thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome. Now,
we want to try to turn the page just a little bit. We know that, you're awesome because at first you were going to be a medical doctor, and then you're an engineer, and then you became an attorney. So own successful businesses and about to launch a rocket right here. We know you're full of business stuff, but we want to say, what does Arlen as a human do? So let's talk about if business is taking off, time, money is not an issue. What is it that Arlen would do with his time?
Wow, that's a hard one. So I love to learn. I love to travel. I've been to about 54 countries in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I can do that in business. I go to Europe every year because I have clients in Europe. I've been to some amazing places in this world. I love hiking. I've been to 48 of the 50 highest points in the US.
Nice.
I've hiked Mount Rainier, Mount Whitney, Mount Hood. All great. Those are Hood and Rainier glacier climbs. But if you were to ask me what I would like to do most, I would say spend time with my family.
Okay.
That gives me more fulfillment in life than anything else. Is if you've ever become, if you're ever become a grandpa, that is the most amazing part of life. It's just spending time with your grandkids. Last year I flew up and took my 5-year-old and 2-year-old grandkids skiing.
Mm-hmm.
Had an amazing day. You know, that's what I would do with my time. And that's what I do with my time.
Nice, nice. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it is important for everyone to understand we do all of these things so we can do that. You know, you help these inventors, business owners to get out there and get their patents and make sure everything is taken care of and be able to take care of your responsibility so that you can get back to your family. So thank you so much for sharing, for them to keep that in mind too, not to just be totally business and forget all about the reason why you're doing this anyway. So if someone were to have questions for you about patents or about some of those business skills that you just shared, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
So there's a couple of ways. You could call my law firm, and the law firm number is 480-655-0073. Or you could send me an email, which is at A as in Apple, Olsen, O as in Oscar, L as in Lion, S as in Sam, E as in Edward, N as in Nancy, at iplawusa.com. IP is Icicle, Paul, Lion, Apple, Walrus, USA.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You got to keep an eye out for that because they may reach out to you because, like I say, you've been a magnificent guest. We definitely appreciate you sharing your journey and some of those things about your life and what you've been doing. And we always honor our guests by giving them the last word. So if you can, please look into the camera and tell the people something good.
Sure. I would say that, number one, just become extremely curious. And always have a passion for learning, and always try to become the best person of yourself that you can. Just reach for the sky, and you'll just enjoy it, make the most out of life that you can. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. I definitely appreciate your time, your words, and to everyone that is watching today, please be kind and thanks.